Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. This is Lori Smith on Blog Talk Radio. It is 6 o'clock here, 6 o'clock in the morning in Calgary, Alberta. It's Thursday, May 13th. I'm happy to be here. This is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another. We're on for 30 minutes live. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. And I've had the chat room open if anybody wants to come and sit in there and hang out. And I'm just really glad to be able to be here. And I thank you for tuning in and for joining me. I'm just drinking some coffee trying to wake up here. And we're going to continue. We're going to talk about child sexual abuse and how to prevent it. It's a great article from littlewarriors.ca. Little Warriors is out of Edmonton, Alberta. Edmonton is the capital city in Alberta, up in Canada. And Little Warriors is a great organization. They do some really proactive work to prevent child sexual abuse, and I'm so glad that they are here and out here doing what they do, working with children in the schools to learn how to stay safe, and also teaching parents, how to protect their children from child sexual abusers and how to protect their children, to start learning how to teach your children the good touch, bad touch, and then what age appropriateness parents should start that. That's a great website. You can find this website, www.littlewarriors.ca, littlewarriors.ca. And I really think it's a great website, and I hope everybody will go and take a look at it. And we're going to continue on with this article that I found called About Child Sexual Abuse and Prevention. And it's yesterday we actually left off on step 4. We were just going to start step 4. Prevention, they list here 7 different steps to prevent child sexual abuse. Step 1 is learn the facts. Step 2, minimize opportunity. Step 3, talk about it. Step 4, stay alert. Step 5, make a plan. Step 6, act on suspicions. Step 7, get involved. And we left off on number 4, which is stay alert. So we're going to continue on with that. And so, this is not a professional show. I don't hold any professional counseling certificates, therapist certificates. I'm just a survivor myself of child abuse. And I just wanted to be one more voice out there to let people know that they're not alone. And that, there is hope and there is help. For many years I suffered along in silence and I only would tell specific people, people I felt I could trust with the information, not to hurt me with it, and, to make me feel worse than I already did. And so I would only tell certain people about it, and I really suffered along in silence for many years. And, didn't reach out to get any help, didn't trust counselors, didn't trust the whole idea of having a therapist. Never thought about reaching out as far as online group support went. I was a survivor of child abuse. I had a lot of issues with self-sabotage and wanting to self-injure and things like that. I just had a lot of problems with flashbacks and whatnot, and really didn't begin my real healing journey until about 3 years ago, which is almost to the day 3 years ago. And so something hit me while I was sitting on the couch, thinking of ending my life, and I thought, I need to fight to stay alive. Why am I fighting to end my life? I need to fight to stay alive. This is crazy. It just hit me that I was going in the wrong direction, and that, if I was to go ahead and allow myself to end my life or just to self-injure and self-sabotage my life, I thought, well, that just allows my abusers to win, which would be my parents. And I thought, no way, I have to. They are not winning this fight. I'm going to win this one because I'm going to stay alive and I'm going to have a good life and I'm going to do as much as I can to help people out here. And as soon as I changed the way that I felt about the whole thing, I started to realize that, I didn't deserve to be abused and I didn't deserve to be treated the way that I was. None of my family, siblings did especially. And I thought, well, I'll just be one more voice out there to try to help people. And I didn't really start getting super involved as far as child abuse issues and being an advocate for child abuse, protection of children and child rights. I just started that about, I'd say not even maybe 8 or 9 months ago. So it hasn't even been a year, but I decided to go public with my blog, which is my story, on Blogger, and that was back in last October. And that's when it all started to happen. I started to really come really quite far in my healing, and so I was writing down all this stuff. I thought, this is so great. It's freeing me from this world of silence that I had been trapped in for so many years, And I thought, this is what I need to do, is raise my voice and get involved and, not sit and suffer in silence and actually, try to, let other people know that, we can do it, but we just have to reach out and get some help. I joined some online support groups for survivors of child abuse, and that was great. It really helped me out to talk to people who were, who could understand, right, where I've been and what I've been through. So that's why it's so important to reach out and get help, right? There is good help out there, whether it's finding a counselor or therapist, or if you're not quite, trusting that sort of thing, you can get on with the online support groups, or there's groups like the ASCA, the Adult Survivors of Child Abuse Morris Center program. They work with child abuse survivors, adult survivors of child abuse. They have online group support. They have some cities actually host chapters, and then you can go and get in on the meetings. So important just to not suffer in silence and just go, just suffer along and hurting and on your own, right? It's so sad to see that, right? I spent a lot of years doing that, and now I really wish I would have reached out and got help like a lot sooner, because I would have been able to heal a lot sooner had I done that. So that's why I just really encourage everybody to keep reaching out, and at some point you will find what's right for you, in your healing journey, and you'll find people that are there to support you, and those are the ones that you want to hang out with and you want to talk with, because they ultimately want the best for you. So that's why it's so important to keep reaching out. And I just wanted to be one more voice to raise awareness, prevention, education, prevention of child abuse out here. So that's why I thought I'll just add my voice to everybody else's who's already out here doing this. And so that's why I'm doing this show. And if you're a young person under the age of 18, I ask that you have an adult listen to this show with you, mainly because there's a lot of adult material on here, and ultimately it is about stopping child abuse, and it's for children. But, I don't know where the players are nowadays, and there could be some really young people listening, and I just think that young people should have someone listen to this that they can trust, and they, that maybe a parent, if you have a parent who cares about what you're listening to and what you're doing online, you could have them check the show out and make sure it's okay for you to listen to. And then if you don't have a parent who cares, which quite often we don't, I know this personally, that you could find a teacher, a counselor, a guidance counselor at school, or a coach, someone in your life that you trust and they've proven themselves trustworthy, and they could listen to the show and find out if it's something that you should be listening to. So you just have to protect yourself, and you have to make sure that you know how to stay safe online. So important for young people to stay safe online, because we see the reports in the paper. We follow this very carefully. I do. I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, and we study this stuff. We look at it. We find these articles and post them and get the word out of what's actually happening to children all around, really, North America and even around the world. And so it's really horrible. You have to keep yourself safe, and you really, you don't want to live in fear. Fear is not a good way to live, but become educated. Get some education and some information on how to keep yourself safe, right? And that's why I like this website. That's why we're going to continue on here with littlewarriors.ca, preventing, child sexual abuse, right? We'll continue on with this right now. And we were talking about, yesterday we were looking at learn the facts, understanding the risks, right, that realities, not trust, should influence your decisions regarding children. Step 2 was minimize opportunity, and that is, if you eliminate or reduce one adult, one child situations, you'll dramatically lower the risk of sexual abuse for children. And so that's just very important to minimize the amount of one adult, one child relationships, because obviously most of this abuse is happening by someone who has access to the children, right? So that would be whether it's in a daycare situation or in a home somewhere or in school, right? So you have to really know who's around your children, right? So important. It says step number 3 that we looked at was talk about it. Children often keep abuse a secret, but barriers can be broken down by talking openly about it. Understanding why children are afraid to tell. We looked at that, and know how children communicate. Talk openly with your child, and talk to other adults about child sexual abuse, right? It's so important that everybody start talking about this. Nobody really wants to talk about child sexual abuse because it's such a horrible thing to talk about, such a horrible thing to know that this is actually happening. And for survivors of child sexual abuse, they know personally that it's happening. And I'm a survivor of child sexual molestation from a family member, and so I know it does happen. I've experienced it firsthand, and I know I actually had many friends when I was growing up who disclosed to me who in their family had sexually abused them, and the amount was just staggering of the amount of people that I actually knew in my own life growing up through the years, through elementary, middle school, high school, of people, young people who had been sexually abused by someone in their family and who had been deeply affected by it, and that they had never received any help. It was not reported, and so these people were free to walk free, whoever it was, grandpa or uncle or brother or whoever, right? We're allowed to go free, and my friends suffered through with this. Really unfortunate that this happens, and that's why it's so important to, first of all, know what's happening with your children. Look for the signs and symptoms. There are signs and symptoms of of abuse, and you can. This is what Stay Alert is all about here. The signs and symptoms, right? We have to really protect children, so they can't protect themselves. So we have to know and to know what to look for as far as signs go. I saw an article in the paper yesterday. Actually, it wasn't in the paper. It was just online. It was just on Facebook because I check out all the child abuse headlines from Dreamcatchers Talk Radio. I mean, not Talk Radio, DreamcatchersForAbusedChildren.com. You can go to that website. There's daily headlines in there. They update daily, and they add everything they can find from all the different papers across the country, North America and Canada and some around the world, regarding child abuse cases that are going on currently, and you can get the sort of the up-to-date information on just how much of this is actually happening, and these people are being convicted, the abusers are, they're being put away, they're being convicted, found guilty. It's just horrible what was going on. But I saw a thing in the paper, actually not in the paper, but it's one of those articles that was posted where this young child, I forget how old this child was, but really young, was taken to the doctor for a gonorrhea. And they were like, well, it had to be from a sexually transmitted. So then they know that there had been some sexual abuse, and they were looking into it as possibly being a friend of the family who has gonorrhea. So that child was sexually abused, obviously. So see, this is the thing. You have to look for signs, and some of the signs aren't that obvious, right? So step 4, we'll look at this, www.littlewarriors.ca. Step 4 says, stay alert. Don't expect obvious signs when a child is being sexually abused. Signs are often there, but you've got to spot them. And I'm just reading right from the page here. Learn the signs. Physical signs of sexual abuse are not common, although redness, rashes, or swelling in the genital area, urinary tract infections, or other such symptoms should be carefully investigated. Also, physical problems associated with anxiety, such as chronic stomach pain or headaches, may occur. So we've got to be able to, recognize these things. If your child has a lot of redness and rashes and swelling in the genital area, urinary tract infections, you better start taking a look into the situation. There might be some there might be some sexual abuse going on with your child. You want to make sure you get that checked out from a doctor. And, we have to protect children, right? They can't protect themselves. Emotional or behavioral signs are more common, and these can run from too perfect behavior to withdrawal and depression to unexplained anger and rebellion. That's just it, You have to really pay attention to what's going on with your child, and quite often they can't say anything, they're just too young, and they don't know how to tell you that they're being abused, and so you have to look for the behavioral signs too, right? Sexual behavior and language that are not age appropriate can be a red flag, it says here, and be aware that in some children there are no signs whatsoever. So it says, if you find physical signs that you suspect are sexual abuse, have the child physically examined immediately by a professional who specializes in child sexual abuse. It's so important because you could save that child from a lifetime of misery and pain and horror, from a child sexual abuser, right? So you have to do the right thing and get the child some help. If you suspect that the child is being sexually abused, you have to make sure that you do the right thing, and that's to get the child some help. So important. Step 5, make a plan. Learn where to go, whom to call, and how to react. It says don't overreact, right? If you find out that, that your child is being sexually abused, or if they come to you and they tell you, right? It says if a child breaks an arm or runs a high fever, you know how to stay calm and where to seek help because you've mentally prepared yourself. Reacting to child sexual abuse is the same. Your reactions have a powerful influence on vulnerable children. When you react to disclosure with anger or disbelief, the response is often that they list here the child shuts down, The child changes his or her story in the face of your anger and disbelief, when in fact abuse is actually occurring, right? Because they see that you're upset and they think you might be mad at them, or that you'll blame them, or that you think it's their fault. Maybe they've been told that it is their fault, and so they don't want to. If you're upset by it, they won't continue to tell, and they won't tell the truth, right? The child changes the account around your questions, so future tellings appear to be coached. This can be very harmful if the case goes to court. That's why it's so important to know how to report child abuse. There's just a few things that there's I think it's 5 questions or something. Who, what, when, where, and you know what I mean. It's very basic, and you're not supposed to lead the questions at all. It can actually get the whole case thrown out of court. You know what I mean? And the child could end up staying in the home and continuing to be abused, right? And so that's why it's so important to know how to report abuse, child abuse, right? And it's so easy and simple, and if everybody knew how to do it, you just never know when a child's going to come to you and disclose that they're being abused, an older child especially, and then you just never know when you're gonna see some signs and warning signs, and you're gonna think, I have to report this, and what's the best proper way to do this? I know there's lots of websites that have this information on there, and DreamCatchersForAbusedChildren.com also has that on there, how to properly report child abuse. But lots and lots of websites have that on there. So you just have to start typing around and finding out on the internet, how to properly report child abuse. And because there's ways to do it, and this way, if it goes to court, it won't look like the child was coached, right? Because if that's the case, then a lot of times the information is no good, and they won't allow it, right? The court won't allow it. So it says then the child feels even guiltier if the person's upset, like the parent or whoever the child tells, if they get upset and start screaming and saying, how could this happen? And, freaking the child out, the child is under stress and under a lot of pressure and anxiety about the whole thing, and then, feeling bad enough as it is, and then to have the person that they tell get all upset and screaming and maybe showing signs of violence, thinking about the abuse, it scares the child even more, and it might make them feel even guiltier, right? So that's why it's so important to know how to handle the situation if a child was to come to you and tell you that they were being abused, right, in any way. It says very few reported incidents are false, and that's a fact. They've done studies on it because they wanted to prove these stories there was one story I know in particular a while back. I talk about this because I had seen it. I wish that I could find it and bring it up for you. But this one girl had disclosed abuse, and there was people saying, "Oh no, it's just a false accusation type thing," and they were really trying really hard to prove that it was true because they wanted to save that child from abuse, right? But they couldn't do it. They actually found out that one case actually was false. It was reported falsely, right? It was a false accusation, and they wanted so badly to believe that it was true because they wanted to save that girl just in case it was true. But they said that that's so rare. You know what I mean? The cases that is just so rare that it doesn't happen as often as people might like to think. That it's just made up, and these kids are just making these things up. So if a child comes to you and actually says they're being abused, you need to take it very seriously, because then 2 weeks later, if that child ends up dead and you didn't do anything about it to report the abuse, you could save a child's life, right? And then you'd have to feel guilty for the rest of your entire life for not believing that child, right? And not getting that child some help. And I'm sure this happens because I know that that there's lots of people out there who will do absolutely nothing to help a child. And I believe that it's unfortunate, but I believe that those people are just as guilty as the people who are abusing that child because they're not getting that child any help and they know about the abuse, right? So really, I'm sorry, but that's just the way I feel. So it says offer support, if a child discloses that they're being abused, right? It says think through your response before you suspect abuse. You'll be able to respond in a more supportive manner. Believe the child and make sure the child knows it. Thank the child for telling you and praise the child's courage, right? Encourage the child to talk, but don't ask leading questions about details. Asking about details can alter the child's memory of events, right? If you say something, it puts something in their mind, and they might, because they're under stress, it might go in there and they might use that as part of their abuse disclosure, right? It says, if you must ask questions to keep the child talking, ask open-ended questions like what happened next, right? You don't want to lead the whole thing. Allow them to tell what happened, right? seek the help of a professional who is trained to interview the child about sexual abuse, right? Professional guidance could be critical to the child's healing and any criminal prosecution. I definitely would recommend that. Assure the child that it's your responsibility to protect him or her and that you'll do all you can. And report or take action in all cases of suspected abuse, both inside and outside the immediate family. So, yeah, we have to, right? We have to take action in all cases of suspected abuse. You have to make the phone call. You have to get that child some help, right? It says, don't panic. Sexually abused children who receive support and psychological help can and do heal. And that's true. I mean, there's so many survivors out here that have survived child sexual abuse, and as much as it was very damaging to their lives and damaging to their whole entire well-being, they have survived it. There's a lot of survivors out there, and I mean, I know just in who I'm dealing with and who I work with on as far as what I'm doing online as far as child advocacy goes to fight for child rights and stop child abuse. I know so many people who are survivors of childhood sexual abuse, and they've gone and done it. They've made it, and they're trying to help other people, and they're moving forward, and they might have a hard time some days, and some days are probably easier than others, but the whole issue is they've done it, they've survived, and so that's the whole issue with help, especially getting that child some help, and making sure that they get the proper help to get through this sort of thing. They can go on to have a full and healthy life too, right? And that's the whole thing. We all deserve it. If you're abused as a child, you really deserve to have a good life for the rest of your life, right? Because it obviously wasn't great, it wasn't good starting out. And that's why I keep telling people you are worth it, you do count, you do matter, and we do deserve to walk free from this abuse and free from the emotional and psychological scarring that happens because of it, and the physical injuries as well, and that continue to haunt and plague adult survivors of child abuse. But the whole issue is that there's so many people out here that have done it and have proven that it can be done, that we can still lead productive and happy lives, and if we want to raise a family or whatever we want to do it with our lives, we can do it, and we don't have to let the abuse stop us from doing it. You know what I mean? We could go on to have a productive, healthy life, which is what I wish for everybody, right? And I mean, it's a long, hard walk and a long, hard road for sure to be on. And I know so many people who are in this situation or who have been, and it is a hard daily walk. Some days are a little bit harder than others, and you just feel like you're just being set back, in your healing and on your walk, your healing journey. But, then you just get up the next day and you start again, and you say, no, today it's going to be a better day, and I'm going to get through this, and I'm going to make it. And especially by reaching out and getting some help and some support, that is so important, right? Just suffering on our own, I don't think that's very good, right? That's why I wasn't getting anywhere, because I was just suffering alone in misery and in silence, right? And all this anger and pain and hatred and rage and sadness and grief and sorrow and every kind of bad feeling was really taking over my whole being. And I just felt like I was just at the end of my rope, you know what I mean? And then when I finally started reaching out, I started to feel so much better, because I thought, wow, look at this, look at the as soon as I reached my hand out, like 50,000 hands came out to me and said, hey, we're here for you. And that's just so awesome. It's such a great feeling to know, that there are people out there that really do care, because if you're a survivor of child abuse, or really any kind of, domestic violence, any kind of abuse, sexual assault, doesn't matter. Trust is a huge issue. You know what I mean? It's like you don't know who to trust, and you don't know if you should trust, and, but I want people to trust me. So I thought, okay, if I want people to trust me, then I have to be able to be open to trusting other people. And so it was a big move for me. It was a big change for me. And, just as I want to be trusted, I want people to give me the benefit of the doubt and trust me, so I'm going to have to do the same. But I just also don't tolerate any abuse in my life, right? I don't allow people to abuse me, and I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, and I'll but as soon as I see that they're abusive or they have an abusive personality, I just shut them out of my life, because I'm like, no, as an adult, I have the right to say no to any relationship that I'm not comfortable in. And so I don't allow myself to be abused as an adult, but that's what I wish other people would do too, because quite often survivors of any kind of abuse, whether it's sexual, physical, verbal, emotional, psychological, right, they go on to be re-victimized as adults, because they haven't quite set the boundaries. They don't quite know how to go about making those decisions for themselves, right? And there's good information out there regarding that, how to set boundaries and how to learn how to sort of decide what kind of people you're going to allow in your life. You know what I mean? You have to look out for yourself as an adult, and if no one looked out for you as a child, obviously, right? When abused children are not looked after, right, and generally hurt very badly, and so, as an adult, we really have to be careful not to allow ourselves to be re-victimized in any situation, whether it's a relationship, boyfriend-girlfriend relationship, or a marriage, or even friends. You can't let your friends abuse you too. That's not the kind of people you want to be hanging around with. I only spend my time with people who I feel are worth spending time with, because they support, not just because they support me, but because they are supportive people. They support everyone in their lives. They don't just run around trying to support me. They're just that type of people. They care about people. They want to help people. They're not looking to hurt people. And so those are the people I hang around with. I don't choose to spend my time with people who hurt people. Right? It's just a bad, those type of people I just don't feel like hanging around, because I spent my whole youth being hurt by people like that, and then, who wants to hang around with people like that? Forget that. So, that's why you have to choose very carefully who you hang out with and who your friends are. If you were abused as a child and you're moving forward as an adult and you're healing, you want supportive people around you, people who do care, and there's all kinds of great support groups out there for people, online support groups. You can even you can join those anonymously. You don't have to give your real name. A lot of people do that just because they don't want people to know who they are. And it's great to have that support, that other person on the other side, or the other, 10 or 20 people on the other side of that who are willing to just walk every day with you. And a lot of times they have great resources they can help provide, and books that they found very healing, certain treatments and handbooks and workbooks that worked for them. So it's so great. Step 6, act on suspicions. The future well-being of a child is at stake, right? By acting on suspicions of child sexual abuse, you will save not only one child, but perhaps countless others. Many of those who sexually abuse children have multiple victims. And, I was talking about that the other day. I said, especially for child sexual predators, the average amount of children that they abuse and get a hold of and abuse and assault is about 100, but then a dear friend of mine in the chat room says it's 120. So, and she's an advocate out of Australia, and 120, that's how many victims, children that these child sexual predators generally, this is an average, right, abuse before they get caught. So that's crazy. It's happening. It's real, right? So you have to, if you stop a child sexual predator, you very well could have saved 120 children from that from being abused, right? Sexually abused and assaulted. So important. It says you may be faced with a situation where you suspect abuse but don't have any proof. Suspicions are scary, but trust your instincts. Have the courage to report the suspected abuse. And that's just it. If you suspect abuse and you have any suspicions at all, you have to report it. Half the time they don't remove these kids, and they should. That's the problem. But they're trying, and I think that's why, I am so for Child Protective Services, because without them, who's going to go and remove these children from these pathetic losers of abusers that are bringing up these children, right? You have to report it. It's the law. And really, it's not that it's just the law. It should be in your heart that you wouldn't want that child to suffer any kind of abuse, period. I don't care what kind of abuse it is, right? So we have to do the right thing and get these children some help, right? It says, what if I'm not sure? Where do I go? It says where to get help, right? There's resources and links on this website, www.littlewarriors.ca. You can click on the button where to get help, and it'll bring up a lot of resources and where to actually get help if you suspect abuse, right? So you can click on that link and find it. So we'll start with tomorrow looking at step 7, get involved. And that's really the last step to this article, and we'll just continue on tomorrow. There's about a minute left here, so thanks everybody for tuning in. Make sure you check out our website. I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, http dreamcatchersforabusedchildren.com. You can learn how to report child abuse properly. There's a free PDF download on there called the Child Abuse Handbook, written by Donna Shear. She's the president of Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, co-written by Sandra Potter, who is the founder and CEO of Dreamcatchers for Abused Children. And really, it's a great resource. I downloaded my copy, and I have it, and there's some good information in there on all the signs and symptoms of child abuse and all the different types of child abuse, and then how to report it. There's great resources and links in there, and it's a great PDF download, and everybody should get one, I think, and read through it and just check it out and see. We just need to become more educated and aware that this stuff is happening, and we could save a child's life, right? So thanks everybody for tuning in. I'll be back on tomorrow, 6 o'clock a.m., same time, tomorrow morning with one child abuse survivor to another. We'll continue on. Until then, you are in my heart, you are in my thoughts, and I just love you all so much. Thanks for being here with me, and I hope you have a really great day. Take care of yourself, and make sure that you do, keep reaching out and looking for that help and keeping that hope alive, right? We have to do it, and we can move forward, and we can heal. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.